But what did you learn watching Caleb up close, having the ability to see him, throughout the day from your perch there?
Well, I think the first thing is, we get a chance to sit down and have a bit of a conversation with them in the production meetings. And so that was fun, to kind of see where he's at, where he sees himself, talking to other people in the organization about, where they feel he's made the most progress. And then you kind of, take that and, you cross-reference that with what you see on tape and what he's doing, to give you a better sense of, where you sit just watching tape and maybe what the reality is. So that was really fun. It was fun to sit down with him and to see where he's at and see how contemplative he was with the different things that we talked about and the questions that we asked him. So that was great. I think what I've seen and what I've seen on tape, and then was reiterated with a lot of people in the organization, is that so much of the growth that he's made, and then what I saw all the way up into the through the game on Sunday, is just his comfort level with with what they're doing, and he's getting more comfortable with the entire process, from calling plays to cadence to the things that go on in the huddle to what this offense is and what they're trying to do. That he's just continually getting more and more comfortable, and it shows up in a couple ways. Is that we've talked about it here a couple different times. It shows up in his ability to process information, know where he wants to go, work his eyes. If you watch the broadcast, we talked about that a lot, and you saw some great examples in the game of that. But it also is about the command of the football, which I've mentioned a few times, is that, you see him on tape in the earlier weeks, and there's just balls that I would normally expect him to make that he's missing, that he's inaccurate on, or the ball comes out way too flat when I know the kind of thrower that he is. And you've seen progress in that area, throughout the first 5 weeks. But I thought that may have been the most impressive thing about the game on Sunday, was his command of the football, and, putting the ball exactly where it needs to be, and the pinpoint passing that he had on a number of different throws was really what jumped out to me. And that starts with the comfort of knowing where you're going and knowing how to tie your feet to it, and the timing of that, and trusting the guys around you to do exactly what you expect them to do. But that's really what jumped off the tape to me, and watching him in person, you're starting to see the thrower that I thought he was coming in. And I really believe it's because of the mental comfort more than it was anything really physically that he wasn't doing in the first part of the year.
Kurt, I was so impressed with the fakes on the first touchdown throw to Kmet. There's an element of courage that goes along with being able to finish that some young quarterbacks struggle with. I'd love to know how you saw that particular play, and if the execution by Caleb on the fakes and in the pocket wasn't just good for a touchdown, but was good for a quarterback overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a level of selling that. I think oftentimes we give the quarterback too much credit for fakes, because in most situations, defenders are reading something else besides the quarterback. So a lot of people will say, "Oh my gosh, look at that, great play fake that the quarterback made." And now, yeah, meshing with the running back and making it look like a run can be a big part of it. But, if linebackers are looking at the quarterback to determine, oh, is he making a play fake, or is he drop back and throwing a pass? They're not going to be a very good linebacker, because they're reading offensive linemen, they're reading their keys, they're reading their lead blockers. But on a situation like that, I do think eyes, and the little pump fake, can have a big impact, and specifically on, again, if you watch the broadcast, I circled their middle linebacker. I think it was Devin Lloyd in that situation, but everybody else kind of has their responsibility and is running to their responsibility. And the one guy you have to move is that Mike linebacker. You got to get him to go somewhere so he doesn't see the tight end sneaking down behind him. And so that's where kind of the eyes, or a little pump fake from your quarterback one direction, then come back the other direction, just to get him to kind of buy that eye candy a little bit, and then the ability to make whatever throw you have to make down the field. Because there was actually a free hitter that was coming at Caleb on that play too. And so making both fakes, having the patience, and then, being able to find and make that throw up over the top. But the one thing I really don't worry about with Caleb is his feel. His feel on plays like that, to avoid that rusher and be able to throw from different platforms. He had another one in the game where he ended up scrambling out to the right-hand side. And it was like everybody on the field was running left, and he had to scramble out to the right, and he scrambled out, and it looks like he's just about ready to throw the ball out of bounds and just save a sack. And then Kmet was blocking over there and just kind of it was leaking out. And he's able to see it and kind of flip it back into him, and they get a big play off of it. And so that's one thing he's always had. And again, as you get more comfortable playing the game and seeing the game and with the speed around you, I think we're going to see more and more of that feel. And so those were a couple plays where I thought his feel for the game really jumped off the page. And it's something that's made him so special in college. I believe it's something that's going to make him special at the NFL. And you're just starting to see that come out, at the level that I think we'll see it through a good part of his career.
That's Kurt Warner joining us on Spiegel and Holmes. Love the way you were talking about his command of the football and the extra levels, not just accuracy. Maybe it's ball placement. I've heard it called or whatever. Just that being able to throw it in those exact spots and how you tied it to his comfort. And he's talked about just getting back comfortable is the phrase that he used. A lot of the no-huddle that they've been using these last 2 weeks, that's a change, Kurt. That's a change. What do you think the no-huddle means they are kind of simplifying things for Caleb to make him more comfortable?
Look, again, I don't like to say simplify because, that, again, kind of implies, he can't handle a more complex situation. But what I do know about, a no-huddle type situation, again, something I mentioned in the broadcast for those that listen, was one thing that I think makes quarterbacks more comfortable often in that setting is that it does limit your menu. And it usually takes you back to your base offense more than its game plan stuff. So when you go into a new, week, you're going to game plan some stuff that's specific to the team that you're playing against. And so it may come off of your base stuff, but it's not stuff that you've been running since training camp and since the first day you got there. When you run a no huddle, very often it's really your base plays. So you have a package of your base plays that you feel good about against kind of every coverage. And the design is we want to do things we're good at, good concepts that are solid, and we want to limit what the defense is doing, but we don't overcomplicate it. We don't go into every week and have a whole different play, a whole different no huddle package than we had the week before. It's stuff that you've done over and over and over again. And so that's where I think, and again, I didn't, verify this with the Bears, but I'm assuming because most places I was, whether that's the 2-minute drill, right? You have your package of plays in your 2-minute drill that you can pull from, or this kind of setting, a package of plays you can pull from. And so you feel really, really comfortable and you've gotten a lot of reps at that stuff. And so I believe, that's a part of why a young quarterback would be very comfortable with that sort of stuff because it just simplifies, all the stuff we're going to do and any kind of adjustments that I have to make this week against this defense. Now we can just go play and I can just pull from this menu or, even nowadays because you have, the guy talking in your helmet down to 15 seconds. Now, I don't know if they're talking to Caleb during that. I remember hearing stories about Sean McVay talking to Jared Goff in his helmet. They would go and hurry up so, they could kind of do the college thing and, the coach could kind of wait and see what the defense was doing and then call the play from there. I don't know if Chicago's doing that or not. But I just think it opens up some elements from that standpoint of base stuff and, not forcing your young quarterback to overthink things. And he seems really, really comfortable in it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it remains a staple in their offense, at times throughout the season.
Hall of Fame quarterback, Super Bowl MVP, Kurt Warner joining us here on the Spiegel and Holmes Show. Our friend, your colleague and friend, Stacey Dales, did a great job of explaining the issues with the lack of scripted plays by Shane Waldron. And then you talked about it on the broadcast. It was great to hear your opinion on it. I want to try and take this forward, and I'd love to get your opinion, Kurt, on should we be looking at it as a positive that the players went to their head coach, the head coach told them to go to the OC, and now everyone seems to be on the same page? Does that strike you as being an indicator of a healthy football team?
Yeah, very much so. Excuse me. We can talk a lot about the different situations. And so, I wanted to be clear in the broadcast that Shane Waldron, and I'm assuming he's done this other places that he's been, is that even though he doesn't script like a first 15 plays, he's got openers and drive starters that he has ready for each game. And those are kind of his starters. But, my indication was that number of plays was maybe a little bit more vast, a little bit more wide. And he didn't know specifically which ones he would necessarily call at the beginning of the game. So it wasn't something that maybe you could lay out for your quarterback ahead of time so he knew exactly what was coming. But still, wasn't just flying by the seat of his pants and going, I don't know what I'm going to call. We'll see. So I want to delineate between that. But there is, I think, something, especially with the young quarterback. But I liked it, and I had, scripted plays, most of the times when I was playing, really, no matter what, what stage of my career it was, where teams would script out those plays, and they would, give you a sense of where we were going. And, I gave one of the references in the broadcast about, my first playoff game, and how in the first playoff game, Mike Martz gave me the first play of the game on a Thursday. And so I had 3 days to think through every scenario that would go into that play. What might the Vikings do? What am I going to do? How am I going to react? Where do I want to get my eyes? All of that stuff. And so, to me, I even felt like I dreamed about the play. Like I'd wake up and my dream was about, okay, I just threw a touchdown on that play against this coverage or that coverage. And, and I went into that game, and my first play, I threw a touchdown pass to Isaac Bruce on that very first play. And, okay, did it have to do with the fact that he gave it to me on Thursday or not? I mean, we can speculate all we want, but I know I was so ready for that play, and I was so ready for every scenario in that play. I was able to see it. It played out, and I was able to make the play. And I do believe a big part of it was because I knew ahead of time and got to think about that play going into the game. And so I could think about all those scenarios. And so I think there is, something very beneficial about that for any quarterback. And then, really to your question about, does it signify a healthy locker room? I think it does, we talk so much about these rookie quarterbacks coming into the league and getting acclimated with everything that is the NFL. And there is no doubt you have to do that. The offenses, your teammates, being able to lead an organization, all of that stuff. But I think anytime you get new players to an organization, there is also a process of the coaches getting acclimated with the players, and specifically with the quarterback. What does this guy like? How does this guy see the game? What does this guy need to succeed? Because all players are different and all quarterbacks are different. And so for, Coach Waldron to hear this from different people, to have that conversation with Caleb, to figure that this is going to help them be more successful, and to make that change is always a healthy thing. When it's not just, hey, this is how I've always done it, so, you guys get used to me. It's this is how I've always done it. I feel comfortable doing this, but if you guys want it a little different, I can do that. I can make those adjustments. It's not going to mess me up so much that I don't feel like I can call the game the way I want to. So I'll make those adjustments for you guys so you can be more comfortable and we can grow together as a unit. That to me is always healthy for an organization. And it's always healthy for coaches that feel comfortable being able to change. I've been around a lot of coaches that did it one way, had success one way, and didn't really know how to do it another way. And so naturally, they're going to continually fall back to what's made them successful. And, and it causes some tension when what they're doing or how they're playing or the scheme that they like to run doesn't perfectly fit with what their quarterback is and what their quarterback likes to do. And so I've been in those situations where, I had to do some of the things that my coaches wanted to do. And I also had to bring them along to my side so we could find a cohesive balance so that I could be at my best and they could also be at their best and, stay in their wheelhouse and make sure that we were getting their strengths and my strengths when we would show up on Sunday afternoons. And so I really like that they're doing that and they're trying to find that and they're trying to figure it out. And it's a process. It's easy for us to say, well, why didn't you do that week one? Well, maybe we didn't know week one. Maybe we went into week one and we thought, hey, this is how I've always done it. Let's do it this way. And, Caleb doesn't say anything or nobody says anything. So we kind of just think, okay, we're fine. And then in week 3 or 4, somebody comes and says, hey, why don't we do this? Like we've done this other places I am, and maybe this would help us. And, that's the first time maybe you think about doing it differently. And, kudos to them for the players. I know Stacey was talking about Mercedes Lewis, but the players going to Coach Waldron and asking for that. And then Coach Waldron for going, okay, let's do it. Let's change and see if this is something that can help us. And so, benefits for everybody, and kudos to both sides.
Yeah, we agree. The adaptability and the communication seems like a plus. And in this town, we've seen a lot worse in terms of communication between a quarterback and an offensive coordinator. It was October of 2011 when Jay Cutler didn't like a play call and said this into a microphone during a game. Tell Martz I said F you. That's a different kind of feedback to an offensive coordinator, Kurt. I don't know if you were ever aware of that. It caused quite a kerfuffle here. And we wondered if you ever delivered a message like that directly or indirectly to Mike Martz, if you had to, sir.
I mean, maybe not exactly like that. But, there's always times when you don't see eye to eye, or, when you're the guy on the field with the ball in your hands and people on the sideline see things a little differently and don't quite see it or see exactly what you're seeing. And so my kids often bring up, a couple interactions that I had with Todd Haley on the sideline. Dad, you didn't show a lot of emotions, but you remember that time that you were yelling at Todd Haley and all of this, and, and I have to kind of take them back to the scenario and how it plays out. And, and those things happen because, playing on the field with the ball in your hands is completely different than watching on the sideline. And so, even when I coached at the high school level or coached, my son, the first thing that I would always ask him is, what did you see? So I just wanted to know that my quarterback had a why. And if he had a why, we could go back and watch the tape and go, okay, you said it was this. Here's why I thought it was different. And let's look at that why of yours. And I see why you did it, but, here's what we need to look at for, the future. Or you can go back and, you can say, oh, that's why I wasn't looking at that, or I didn't see that, or I see that step that guy made there that probably scared you away from that throw. And I wasn't looking at it till a step or two after that. And so, so much of it is understanding that. And then, of course, in the moment, when that you saw something that stopped you from throwing something or made you make a certain read, and you run over to the sideline and somebody's like, why didn't you throw it here? That guy was wide open. What are you doing? Sometimes those emotions come out like, hey, you're not out there. You're not doing this. I know why I did it. I saw it. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But, don't yell at me from the sidelines because you think you saw something that didn't correlate to what I was seeing out there. And we're all competitors. And when it usually happens when, you don't complete something as a quarterback, right? You don't make a play. So you're already mad and they're mad because you didn't make a play. And then the tensions get high. So it happens every once in a while. But I think it's always important to ask that question of your quarterback. Tell me why you did what you did. Tell me why you threw that ball there and it ended up getting intercepted. Why did that happen? And so those things are important. So you can still coach off of it and you can still take them through, okay, what you saw and why you should do it differently. But as long as your quarterback has a reason for doing something, I think it makes coaching so much easier. Because I had a number of quarterbacks that would tell me at times, like, I'm not really sure. Well, when you tell me you're not really sure, then I'm going to go to you and go, okay, you can't do that. You've got to see this and you've got to understand this, because we can't miss that opportunity, or we can't throw that ball because your eyes should have been on that guy in the right spot. And so I think those things become really important when you're going through that process.